I have got two good news for you. News number one, it has been proven that there is a big split between the British government and the British people. The British people are certainly against the war, and the British government, in spite of their parliament, they are still in favor of the war. This is the same in America. The American people are against the war, and the American government still insisting on the war. That's news, good news number one. News number two, I would like to congratulate the people of the Arab world and of the British people and the American people, because I am sure we have managed to stop this war. Negotiation is the only result for this solving of this problem. Obama doesn't know what he's talking about. British people are saying that Obama hasn't got the American people are saying Obama hasn't got any political policy. He's changing his color because he has failed, and even the American Congress are against him. So I think we are winning. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kamal. Heartily agree with those emotions. And finally, to sum up, I've got Lindsey German, who's convener of the Stop the War Coalition. Lindsey.
Thanks very much, and thanks to everybody for coming, and we won't keep you here too much longer in this rather wet evening. And I just want to say firstly, this is of course the 11th of September. This was the date 40 years ago when the Chilean coup, backed by the United States, overthrew a democratically elected government in Chile. The president was murdered, tens of thousands of people were killed or exiled, and people are living with the consequences of that then. I say this because the 9/11 we're always told about is the one that took place 12 years ago, when the planes were flown into the Twin Towers in New York, and that marked the occasion for a war on terror launched by George Bush and Tony Blair, which we are still living with the consequences of, and we're still living with this war. And the truth of the matter is that every single one of those interventions has resulted in more death, more refugees, more people displaced, and more instability. And when they tell you that we're doing this because of a humanitarian intervention, because of the terrible humanitarian crisis which is indeed going on in Syria, we should say this is a lie. They never do it for those reasons. That is the excuse they use to go to war, but they go to war for their own strategic interests, for their own control, and they don't care a damn for the ordinary people of Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan. Absolutely. We've heard about the terrible deaths of 13 children in a school in Syria last week, all over the BBC, day after day. 15 people were killed in a NATO airstrike a few days ago in Afghanistan, including 4 children. It is on none of the headlines of the news anywhere. This is what our government is like. They use deaths for their own purposes. They don't care about the children around the world, or they will be putting money into peace, not war. That is the simple truth about our government. Now, I think, as the other speakers have said, we have had a very big victory over the last couple of weeks. The fact that our parliament voted not to go to war in Syria had an impact not just in this country but around the world. It forced Barack Obama to say he would have a vote. He then realised he couldn't get a majority in Congress to go to war, and therefore he's been forced to back off, at least for the time being. But we should not be fooled into thinking this is the end of this particular war or of other wars in the future against Iran and other countries. They are absolutely addicted to war, and they will keep doing this until they overthrow the regimes that they don't like in the Middle East, and that is what the war in Syria is about. John Kerry said the other day, it's a tiny, tiny little war. It won't affect anybody. You won't hardly notice that it's going on. That is not true. They wanted to fire cruise missiles. They wanted to bomb. They wanted to degrade the Syrian military so that they could enforce regime change, and that is something that we've stopped them from doing, and that is important. because it means that the imperialists, for the first time in 12 years, have had a major setback, and it makes it much harder for them to go to war again. But we have to keep campaigning. None of this would have happened if it hadn't been for an anti-war movement. None of this would have happened if we hadn't spent these last 12 years putting the arguments about the hypocrisy of these people. Who uses chemical weapons when we've seen white phosphorus, depleted uranium in Gaza, in Fallujah, Agent Orange in Vietnam? We know that the Americans are the only country that have used nuclear weapons. So the hypocrisy over the chemical weapons, I'm totally against chemical weapons, whoever uses them. But let's not use this as another pretext for using even worse weapons against people. So thank you very much for everything that you've done. One other good piece of news is that today the Trade Union Congress, which represents the vast majority of trade unions in this country, has voted unanimously for a statement which supports Stop the War and which is against any military attack on Syria. And again, this is a fantastic achievement of what we've done in the last 10 years, because 10 years ago the TUC supported the government and supported the attack on Iraq. That is how far things have changed round and how important it is for us. So there's a couple of things we've got on the horizon. One is on Saturday we have our conference. You're all welcome. You have to sign up as members if you're not already members or delegates, but you're all welcome to that at Westminster University, Regent Street, all day on Saturday. We're going to have a public meeting that we were going to have tonight on October the 7th, which is the anniversary of the start of the Afghan war 12 years ago. And we will be demonstrating and campaigning. We'll be watching very carefully what is going on, what our government is saying over the next few weeks about what is happening in Syria, because we cannot take for granted that this is peace. In fact, we know it isn't peace. We know they are fomenting war in all these places. That's why let's keep organising, let's stay strong, let's stay vigilant, and let's keep going as an anti-war movement. Thank you very much.